That was a glimpse of the protests that are taking place in Brazil as the number of coronavirus deaths has unfortunately exceeded 500,000 people. Jair Bolsonaro is a complete and utter disaster, has been a complete and utter disaster. He's been referred to as Brazil's Trump, and the number of COVID deaths certainly bears that out. During the protests, you're likely to hear things like "Get out Bolsonaro," "genocidal." That was yelled by Rio demonstrators, some of them wearing t-shirts or masks with the image of former leftist president Luiz Inácio da Silva, or Lula da Silva as many refer to him, who leads Bolsonaro in some polls. So Lula da Silva was a political prisoner. Bolsonaro and his cronies imprisoned him when he was leading in the polls in the presidential election that eventually got Bolsonaro elected. Luckily, he was eventually released and he is running for president again. And he is leading in the polls, which is good news. So this comes after Bolsonaro's terrible Trump-like response to the pandemic. Dubbed Trump of the tropics by some of his opponents, Bolsonaro has dismissed COVID-19 as a little flu while refusing to follow or promote mask wearing, quarantines, and social distancing. Despite having contracted the virus himself last year, Bolsonaro has also encouraged large gatherings and disparaged vaccines. So, I mean, it's just a mirror image of Trump, really. And with about 100,000 new daily infections and around 20,000 people dying each day from COVID-19, Brazil is currently suffering the world's second deadliest outbreak after India. According to Folha de Sao Paulo, only 15% of Brazilians have been fully vaccinated against the coronavirus, a sore point in the nation that prides itself on its historically successful vaccination drives. So look, the positive news, even though it's really hard to find a silver lining in all this awfulness, is that unlike the United States, Brazil actually has a great option when it comes to electing a leader. And it's the same leader who had lifted literally tens of millions of people out of poverty in that country. Yes, that is Lula da Silva. We're not talking about a Biden-like figure who's gonna constantly capitulate with the right wing. And look, if we're gonna talk about Brazil, I would really regret not bringing up the incredible coverage that my late friend Michael Brooks did on Lula. Please check out his illicit history. It's a mini doc on Lula da Silva and his leadership. I'm gonna give you a little taste of some of his coverage right now. Take a look.
This guy was put in jail during Brazil's military junta years because he was a labor union leader. He came from absolutely nothing to become president and really arguably be the best president in modern politics in terms of what he delivered for his people. Here's some of the things that he did in his two, and again, very moderate terms. The minimum wage was increased by 50%. Our Bolsa Familia program, which insisted impoverished families while simultaneously ensuring the children received quality education, won international renown. We proved that fighting poverty was good economic policy. And then he talks about how our progress was interrupted not through the ballot box, though Brazil has free and fair elections. Instead, President Dilma Rousseff was impeached and removed from office for an action that even her opponents admitted was not an impeachable offense. Then I too was sent to prison after a dubious trial on corruption and money laundering charges.
And you know, the US media was complicit in the political imprisonment of Lula da Silva for obvious reasons. He was a leftist leader that actually cared about the poor as opposed to multinational corporations and US-based businesses.
Yeah, so first on Bolsonaro, typical right wing, he combines corruption with ignorance, with incompetence. So anti-mask for no reason. And it's now become a right-wing thing all across the planet. Thank you, Donald Trump, and now it's gonna spread this disease further and further. It's totally ridiculous, has no point at all. I don't know, I guess they think they're being macho if they don't wear masks. It's so painfully dumb. And then, you know, the incompetence in dealing with the disease, because why? Why is the right wing more consistently incompetent than the left wing? Because they only care about themselves.
Yes.
So when you ask them to actually deliver for anyone else, they don't care enough to do it right. They're like, how does that help me? So that's why you're seeing the same thing in Brazil as you did in America when Trump was in charge. And then finally to Lula da Silva. Look, Michael Brooks did amazing work on that. He was an expert on that. But these days, there's a lot that I disagree with Glenn Greenwald on, but he also did amazing work. We're fair about when people get things right, and Glenn was amazing on Brazil in Bolsonaro's corruption and the corruption that led to the attacks against Lula da Silva, okay? And if Lula comes back and wins, it's justice. And Anna's right, this is not like, we have to hold our nose and vote for this guy and hope that it gets better later and hold him accountable. You actually have an amazing choice in Brazil.
Right.
So in a sense, I'm envious that you have that choice in Brazil.
Yeah.
So let's go Lula da Silva. Let's see if he can make a great comeback, and he should.
Yeah, and you make a great point about right-wing leaders, because there's a similar thread when you look at the way the United States handled coronavirus under Trump. You have Bolsonaro, very similar to how Trump handled coronavirus, but in this case in Brazil. And then look at Narendra Modi, right? Modi in India, very similar case. And why is it? Why did they all handle COVID similarly? Because they didn't want to force or push for social distancing. In the case of India, Modi still wanted to do his political rallies. In the case of Donald Trump, I mean, it was the same thing. And he wanted to ensure that businesses remained open because he didn't want the economy to suffer, which would reflect poorly on his leadership, right? It's all about self-interest. It's not about doing right by the very people who elected them, the very people they're supposed to be representing. It's not even about saving lives. They don't care. That's the part of it. I mean, how do you not get jaded while being informed about politics and what actually drives and motivates people who run to be leaders?
I actually want to talk about that in the bonus episode for the members, why the bad guys rise to the top in these systems. There's actually a very logical reason why, but we'll have time for that in the bonus episode. At tyt.com/join to become a member to get that. We do an extra half an hour every day for the members. Okay, but on this, Anna, there's more evidence. To your point, Erdogan, same exact thing, right-wing leader in Turkey. And in the beginning, they were doing a good job of containing coronavirus, but when Erdogan wanted political rallies and he needed to rile people up and cause distractions, he did massive political rallies and started doing a terrible job. And guess what happened? Giant coronavirus breakout in Turkey. Tons of people died. They're so incredibly selfish. It's unbelievable. And then we just had a spectacular example of it, not in coronavirus, but in other issues with Netanyahu. So Netanyahu was about to lose, and then he eventually did, right, and get thrown out of power. The other side is about to form a coalition government, and it might be with some Arab parties. What does Netanyahu do? He starts a war with Gaza. He basically raids the Al-Aqsa Mosque and causes tremendous death of civilians, let alone the damage to Israel and the Gaza Strip, etc. Why? For his own political purposes. They're just driven by their ego and greed, and they don't give a damn about you. And that's what defines the right wing all across the world. All right, guys, we got an amazing bonus episode. I'll give you that issue that I was talking about, and we got more on that. And by the way, an NFL player just came out as gay. Rick's gonna have that on Big Rick Energy on Twitch. We'll see you there. Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.